Hello everyone and welcome back to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. Thank you all guys for subscribing to my channel. I thank you for your love, for your support. If you are new to the channel, you're highly and very welcome. If you have not subscribed, please, I would appreciate if you hit on the subscribe button and then hit on the bell on the side to get an update whenever I upload a new video. So that's just like basically the essence of hitting on that bell. And then if you want to register for my online classes, you can just see my number scrolling through the screen. Just send me a message on WhatsApp. I'll give you the details of the classes we have presently available. And then you can follow me on all of my social media platforms: Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, all at Stylish Naija. Okay guys, so I'm so excited. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to cut a two-piece dress, so a trouser and a top. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be making use of. This is a crepe fabric and I have 3 yards of fabric, so I'm going to actually try and manage this fabric. If you want to do this, please, I would recommend for you to use like 4 yards for this. For a plus size, use 5 yards. Okay, that's what we are going to be making use of. And the measurement that I'm going to be making use of, I'm going to be making use of the measurement of the waist is going to be 34, and then the hip is 40, and then the thigh, that's for the trouser, the thigh is 28 inches. So these are the measurements that I'm going to be making use of. And then for the top, the bust, I'm going to be using a free size of 40, just up, down. So these are the measurements that I'm going to be making use of today. Okay, so now let's get started. So I'm going to fold my fabric and then we're going to measure. So I'll show you the details. So the trouser that I'm going to be using, the trouser pattern is the sideless seam pattern trouser. So that's what I'll use for this video. All right guys, so let's get started right now. Okay guys, so I'm going to be using my sideless pattern for this. So I've done a tutorial on this before, how to cut and sew a trouser without side joining. So since the dress is going to be covering the top part, so this is just like a perfect pattern to use for this. So I have some basic lines already on my pattern which I'm going to explain to you. So for the band, I'm going to use just a simple band of about 1 inch to turn the waistline. So that is why I'm using my actual waist measurement. So I don't need to take out the band measurement since I'm not using a basic big band. So you can see this is the waistline. So from the waistline to this line is 9 inches, which is my hip line. And then from this line to this line is my crouch line. So I'm going to explain how I got the crouch. And then from here, which is 13 inches, from here to 22 inches is my knee line. And then from here, which is the waistline, to 41 inch, that's the full length of my pants or the trouser. Okay, so for the crouch, what I did is my hip is 40 inches, and then you divide 40 into 4. And then I added 3 inches extra to it, so that gives me 13. So at my crouch, I'm going to be using 13 inches for my crouch. You can actually add 2 inches, but because I don't want any form of tightness, so that was why I added 3 inches. So this pattern, I've tried it a lot of times and it works perfectly fine for those of you that don't know how to calculate the crouch. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now, so this part now, this is my folded end. I'm making use of a pattern paper, so when I'm placing it on the actual fabric, you are going to see how I'm going to do that. So from this point now, I'm going to come here and measure my waist measurement. So for the waist measurement, you divide your waist measurement into 4, and then I'm going to add the measurements on this side. I'll measure the waist part. Like I said, I told you 8.5. So I'll mark my 8.5 here. I'm just going to add just a little bit of 1 inch allowance or 1.5 inch allowance to it. I don't want it to be too big, so I'll mark it like this. So I'm not adding any dart on this trouser. So I'll come to the hip line. So like I said, so the hip measurement is 40. You divide into 4, I have 10 inches. So on my hip line, I'm going to add 2 inches allowance on the hip line. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll just use dotted lines just to mark it so you would see. And then I'll mark it up to that point. So on my crouch line, that's where I'm going to add the lap measurement, which is divided into 2. So like I said, I used 28. You divide into 2, I'm going to have 14. So I'll mark the 14 inches here. And then I'm going to add another 1.5 inch allowance to it. So from this point, here's what I'm going to do. So you can see how I navigated the curve smoothly to that point. So I'll use my pattern curve now to highlight it nicely. So the next thing I'm going to do now, so for the nail line, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take what I have here, I'll measure what I have here, 14.5. I'm going to come here like this. I'm going to reduce just 1 inch from it. So I'll mark it here like this. And then from this point, I'm just going to go ahead, I'll do this. And then this, what I have here now, I'm going to take, I'll repeat it on the down part. The same measurement I have here, the 14 inches. I'm going to place it here. And then I will connect it with a straight ruler. So you can see it is a very simple process. Okay, so you can see, so we are done already with our pants. That's for the front pattern. So the back pattern, what we're just going to do, I'm just going to add just half of an inch because it does not have side seam. So I'm just going to add half of an inch or 1 inch to it for the back pattern. So I'll cut it out right now. So I'll place it on the fabric right now. Okay guys, so you can see, so I folded my fabric. So I folded the fabric into two. So this side does not have joining. So you see that I did not open up this side. That's the side of my trouser. I did not open it up. So I just folded it. So I'm going to cut it like that. So the only part that is going to have joining on this trouser is the center front and the center back. So those are the parts. So I'm going to fold my fabric again, and then I'll place the front to cut the back. Okay, so you can see I've placed the front on the back. So for the back pattern, so this pattern is really nice if you want to use an elastic for your waist. So this is just like the best pattern to use. And so when you want to do that, put into consideration the top part. You add extra inches that you use to create your elastic casing. For me, I'm going to add a zip like I said. So here's what I'm going to do. So for the back pattern, I'm just going to add just a little bit, just like 1/4 of an inch to it. So this pattern is good for a very free trouser. When you want to make a free trouser, it is advisable to use this pattern. So I'll cut it out now. So no much difference between the back and the front, please note. So I've cut out my trouser now. The next thing is to stitch it. So I'll cut out the top now, and then we'll continue. Okay guys, so this is the leftover fabric that I have from my 3 yards. So I'm going to use this now to cut the top. So if you want yours to be exactly the size that you have on the picture, use about 4 yards of fabric to achieve this, between 4 to even 5 yards if you want the top to be long up to down. So I'm folding my fabric line into 4, so I'm just using what I have left over. So I folded the fabric into 4, and then I'm going to trim now. So for my own, the neckline, I don't want it to be too wide. So from this center back now, so this is the center back, I'm going to measure my across back and see what I have. So the across back, I have about 22. So 1 extra inch is there, which I'm going to leave for stitching. So 22 inches is fine. So the next thing I'm going to do now, for the neckline, so I'm going to cut it out before I open the shoulder. So the shoulder, I'm going to open it up. So for this, you can decide not to open it, but you can decide to open it. So it's always good to open it and stitch it back. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to slit it open. That's on this shoulder line. I'm going to slit it open, and then I'll take it back to my machine and join it back. And then I'll bring it back. We'll continue. Okay guys, so you can see I've stitched it on the shoulder line like I explained to you. So the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm just going to trim it. So this is my remaining fabric. So that is what I'm working with. Please note. All right, so I have all of the points together. The next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to trim this fabric because I want the 4 edges to drop down, and if I'm leaving it like this, it's not going to drop down. So here is what I'm going to do on this side. So it depends on how much fullness I want to have on my dress. So this is about 4 inches now. So I'm just going to mark this 4 inches like this, because this is how much I'm going to cut off. And then I'll come to this side also, and then I'll mark about 4 inches also. So I'm going to curve it in. So I'm going to measure what I have here to see the length of my dress, to see the length of the dress. So what I have here is about 18 inches. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit. So I'm going to drop it. So if you are using a very full dress, so I will fold this now, so I'll be able to cut both of them the same. So if you are using a very full dress, that's your fabric. If you want it to be long like what we have on the thumbnail picture, you can make it as long as 40 or even 45. You understand? So but my fabric has really restricted me. So what I have here now is about 26 inches. So I'm going to trim this off now. Okay, so I'm going to cut now. So I'm just trying to double check my measurement. So I don't want it to be too high. If I take it up to 18, it's going to be on top of my belly button. So I don't want that. So I'm going to reduce it to about 21 inches. And then I'm going to cut. So this is the center front now. So as it's getting to the side, I'm just going to. So the truth of the matter is that the higher you go, the more drop that you are going to get. So I need to redrop this. So I noticed that you can see my fabric, I had some restrictions, so I need to trim this well. So normally I'm supposed to go as high as this, you understand? So once I go as high as this, it will help the edges to drop. But I don't have much fabric, so I'm not going to do that. So the next thing, I'm going to add the neckline here. Okay. So the neckline, so for the neckline, I don't want a wide neckline like what we have on the picture. I want my neckline, I don't want my neckline to be as wide as that one. So I just want a small neckline. So I'm going to use 3 inches wide, and then the depth also I'll use 3 inches, both for the back and the front. And see, okay, so I'm just trying to trim the shoulders now. It is a very simple dress. So like I said, if it is a long one, just to follow the same process and cut. So after this, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open the shoulder to have those flaps on it. So in opening the shoulder, I'm going to measure. Normally my shoulder is 14 inches, which is 7. That's folded into 2, which is 7. So once I take it up to this point, it's going to reach the nip of my shoulder. But if I want it to come down a little bit, I can decide to increase it. So I can decide to increase it to about 8.5 inches. That's about 17 inches instead of 14 inches of my shoulder, or even up to as 9 inches. So what I'm going to do now, this part, I'm going to loosen it up to this point. So that is why I said it's better for you to join. It's better to join it before doing this. So with that, it's going to be easy for you to actually do this. So if you are not using a thick fabric, please don't try this thing that I'm doing, or else you rip your fabric. So I'll just loosen it off the camera and then show you guys. Okay guys, so I've finished. So I've tried it. It was really beautiful when I tried it on. So what I even noticed that you can actually do this in two ways. You can decide to just leave it like this, and then you still wear a camisole on it, or you can decide to just run a stitch on the right side of this dress. So mine, I think I'm just going to run a little stitch on it. So I'll show you guys how to run the stitch on it right now. So you are going to fold your dress, just fold them back together, make sure that they are on the same point, and then depends on how tight you want the dress to be on the inside. So that is what you will use. So for mine, I'm just going to check. My bust is 36, which is 9. So I think I'm just going to use about 10 inches for it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mark 10 inches here now. This is 10 inches. And then from this point, I'm going to come. This is 9 inches for the armhole. I'll leave that. And then I'll just come down a little bit. And then just stitch. That's from this point, just stitch about 5 or 6 inches. So I'll just run a straight stitch here like this. Just a straight stitch, just the same way we do the butterfly dress. That's when you are stitching butterfly. On this right side like this, I'll just run a stitch of about 6 inches here, and then run another stitch here of about 6 inches. And then for the neckline, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a black bias to turn the neckline. So I just want to add another color to it, and then I'll look for a black applique and just attach it on a little part of it. So that is what I will do. And then for the edges, you can decide to stitch yours, but mine, I'm not going to stitch. I'm going to use an overlock. So I'll use an overlock seam or a serger to serge all around the edges. I want it really neat, so that is why I'm going to do that. So for the trouser, so that's for the stitching of the dress. So for the trouser, the way I'm going to stitch the trouser, like I said, I've done this before. I'll drop a link of that video for you in case you don't know how to do that. So this is how I am going to join my trouser together. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this now, this crouch. So that is why you don't really need much difference. So this crouch, I'll stitch this crouch to this crouch like this here, and then I will stitch this crouch also to this. So I hope you understand what I'm doing. So after stitching this crouch to this, I will bring the down part together. That's the center back, the center, the middle, and then I'll stitch them separately. So I'll go and do that now and show you. So like I said, I'm going to explain this again. You bring one of the crouch, that's the front crouch, you bring them together. You see no much difference in the length. So I'll stitch them together because it is a very free trouser, so you are not going to have problem with that crouch being tight. So that is it. So I'll stitch this together like this, and then stitch the other one. So I'll go and do that. I'll still drop the link of the other video also. So I'll go and do that and then bring it back and show you. Okay guys, so you can see I've stitched them just the way I told you. So you can see it here, the way I stitched it. So the waist I had to hold, because the only way for you to reduce this trouser is from this line. So mine was a little bit big because of the allowance that I added, since I'm not using an elastic for it, so I had to hold it back. So after stitching, you hold them together like this. So the next thing, see, we're almost done with the trouser. So the next thing, I'm going to hold this on the crouch line, that's from the down, and then I'll stitch this one to this end, and then stitch this one to this end. So that is how it is, and then I'll just pick any part and then make that part as the back, and then I'll add a zip to it, and then I'll just turn it with my fabric. That's for the band, just add a tiny band to it. So I'll do that, and then I'll bring it back and place them on the mannequin for you to see. So that is how simple it is to do this kind of trouser and top. Okay guys, so at the end of the day, you can see how our two-piece dress looks like, the trouser and the top. So it actually came out really fine. So for the down part of my dress, I'm going to use an overlock seam to weave it around. So I'm thinking maybe I will use a black thread, or maybe the same color. I've not decided yet. And then if you want yours to be longer, like the picture on the thumbnail, I would advise for you to make use of between 4 yards and 5 yards of fabric. So you can see mine is not as long as that picture because I just used just 3 yards of fabric. So if you want a longer version, increase the volume of your fabric. Other than that, every other process is the same. And if you find this video helpful, please like this video, subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you so much guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.